What's going on, noobs? I am Rory, the Perpetual Noob, and welcome back to another exciting Hollow Knight boss discussion. This is the 17th video in a series where I'll be discussing each boss of Hollow Knight, where we can find them, how we can defeat them, and how does this boss fit into the world of Hollow Knight. Today, we'll be talking about the Collector. We can find the Collector at the top of the Tower of Love, which is a part of the City of Tears. To enter the Tower of Love, we're going to need a few things. Most importantly, we need the Love Key. The Love Key is found in the lower right of the Queen's Garden, and we will need Yzma's Tear to get it. Then we've got to do a lot of platforming in Kingdom's Edge, which will require the Monarch Wings and Mantis Claw. We need to reach the center left of Kingdom's Edge, and that is where Kingdom's Edge connects to the City of Tears and the entrance of the Tower of Love. Before fighting the Collector, I recommend dropping all the way down to the bottom of the tower and opening up the locked doors with the switch and sitting on the bench in the City of Tears, specifically at King's Station, so your save point is close, just in case. Once inside the Tower of Love, we need to claw our way to the top, traversing long hallways full of glass jars containing many dead bugs. We can break these jars. It's only dangerous to do so with the jars containing the Vengeflies. When we reach the middle of a room full of empty jars, the Collector and the gates drop down. The Collector lets out a maniacal scream, and the fight begins. The Collector leaps into the ceiling, causing glass jars to rain down on us. I put ceiling in quotes because this attack appears to be more like the Collector leaping to a floor above us, running around like a madman, and either throwing jars down at us or knocking the glass jars over in their frenzy. Either way, the glass jars fall from random positions in the ceiling. The jars do not break when they hit us. Instead, they shatter when they hit the ground, and each glass jar randomly contains one of three enemies: a Vengefly, a Balder, or an Aspid. These enemies will attack us once freed from their jar. This attack randomly involves 1 to 3 glass jars. This attack can happen multiple times, freeing more and more enemies, though I never saw more than 3. The Collector telegraphs this attack when they compress themselves, like they're bending over and squatting at the same time. They straighten up and leap straight into the air, their arms raised over their head. The Collector disappears into the ceiling, and we can hear a noise for each glass jar that will be coming down. This noise does not happen before each jar falls. For example, if 3 jars were going to fall, we'd hear the noise 3 times before any jars fall. The noise sounds a bit like wooden wind chimes collapsing. A falling glass jar is telegraphed when we see dust falling from the ceiling. In about a quarter of a second from when the dust shows, the jar begins to fall. Each jar takes half a second to reach the ground, meaning we have nearly a full second to react to a falling jar. When all of the glass jars are done falling, the Collector drops back down, telegraphing where they'll come from with a cloud of dust falling from the ceiling about half a second before the Collector. Let's call this whole process the jar attack. The Collector will leap towards us and grab us. I say grab because the Collector doesn't pick us up or anything. They just make a grabbing motion with their arms. This attack damages us, sure, but the Collector isn't actually grabbing us. The Collector targets us with this attack, leaping to where we were at the beginning of the attack. The Collector telegraphs this attack when they compress like they do for any jump, but when the Collector jumps for this attack, their body will lean forward during the ascending portion of the jump. Then they straighten up as they descend. Before landing, the Collector swipes at us with their arms. Let's call this attack the grab attack. The Collector is a weird boss, and by extension, it is a weird fight. First, the Collector is erratic with their movements. Rather than leaping or walking anywhere, the Collector takes short hops. With each hop, the Collector will randomly choose one of 3 positions: slightly bent with hands facing up, straight up with 2 hands clasped together, or that second hop but spinning like a top. Second, the Collector is erratic with their attacks. The Collector's primary method for damaging us is with those hops or with the jar attack. Sticking with the erratic theme, the Collector used the grab attack against me only 3 times. Compare that with 19 jar attacks and more hops than I wanted to count. There is footage here from a second fight, but that second fight was specifically captured to provide grab attack footage. That's how rare the grab attack is. And even the jar attack itself is erratic. The jars and the collector can come from anywhere in the ceiling. Each jar spawns a random enemy, the collector sends down a random number of jars, and the timing between each jar appears to be random. It's not all doom and gloom against this random boss. The collector's hops are high enough that we can walk underneath them, and we can dash away from the grab attack. I found it was safest to walk or dash towards the collector, so we'd pass safely underneath them. The collector may be erratic, but they don't change direction when they're hopping or grabbing. Don't jump, if you can help it. Obviously, jump out of the way of the random enemies if you need to, but jumping to avoid the collector is a trap.
It's a trap!
I faced the collector when I was fairly strong. I had a coiled nail, one level below the strongest our nail can be, and this meant that I killed those random enemies in one hit. This freed me up to focus my attention on the collector. I can see this fight being much trickier with anything less than a coiled nail, because then the random enemies would take more than one hit to defeat. Even though I could defeat the random enemies in one hit, I found it was better to deal with them as quickly as possible, especially the aspids and balders. The vengeflies could be annoying, but they aren't nearly as aggressive or difficult to deal with as the other two. I had the Shade Cloak, and being able to dash through enemies and attacks definitely saved my butt a few times. My equipped charms for this victorious battle were Thorns of Agony, Quick Slash, Wayward Compass, Gathering Swarm, Grub Song, and Quick Focus. Thorns of Agony is such a great charm for me. I get hit a lot, and I make these enemies pay for it. Thorns of Agony works beautifully against the quick movements of the collector because the range of the tendrils is so long that even if the collector hit me, Thorns of Agony was still going to hit back. The long range of the tendrils also helped clear the arena of those pesky random enemies. Quick Slash is such a good charm. It gives me all the nail damage I could possibly want, and being able to swing my nail as often as possible helps enormously when the collector is hopping around quickly and I've got balders barreling towards me. Quick Slash makes it possible for me to swing at everything around me fast enough to stay safe. I was exploring Hallownest, and that's why I had Wayward Compass and Gathering Swarm with me. I found the love key sometime after I learned that there was a door where the key would fit, but I couldn't remember where the door was once I found the love key. I was looking for the door, but the search for the Tower of Love's door required a lot of exploration. Wayward Compass and Gathering Swarm are fantastic exploration charms, and totally useless in a boss fight. I love Grub Song. I like getting the most out of being hit, and Grub Song ensures that if I can't gain soul from a nail strike, I can gain some soul from getting bopped on the head instead. The collector's erratic movements and attacks ensured that I got hit on the head quite a lot. Thanks to Grub Song, I was never wanting for soul, which was a lucky break because we don't gain any soul when we strike the collector. Quick Focus is one of my standard charms, and it helps a ton against the collector. There can be a lot of things happening at once during this fight, and Quick Focus ensures that we'll be able to heal at least one hit point during those brief moments of respite. Desolate Dive is a solid spell because of the invincibility it provides, but it could be tricky to land against the collector, and would probably be more effective against the random enemies. Vengeful Spirit would be best against the random enemies because the collector is never still for very long. Howling Wraiths would be devastating against the collector because we can stand underneath the collector when they hop, and they would take nearly the full brunt of Howling Wraiths. Don't forget to equip the Shaman Stone and Spell Twister charms to maximize your spell potential. We don't gain any soul when we hit the collector with our nail. We do gain soul from the random enemies, but maintaining a steady flow of soul is always a good thing. We've already talked about Grub Song being useful in this way. Charms like Soul Catcher, Soul Eater, and King's Soul would also be good soul generating options. If there are no random enemies around, even without Quick Focus, we could heal when the collector starts the jar attack. However, if there are any random enemies around, healing could be tricky. For maximum safety, I'd recommend using Balder Shell or even Shape of Un. The charm Heavy Blow would also help keep the random enemies off of you if you needed to hit them more than once. Due to the chaotic nature of this fight, another tactic that I think would be interesting would be using Defender's Crest and combining it with some other charms. Defender's Crest on its own wouldn't be too useful because of the low damage. If we combine it with Spore Shroom, every time we heal, we'd create a huge spore cloud that would damage enemies over time. The Collector's arena is small enough, this cloud would cover a huge portion of it. We could also combine Defender's Crest with Glowing Womb, which would create toxic flies that crash into enemies, and they would definitely help deal with the random enemies. By extension, the Weaver Song charm might also not be a bad idea, in the same vein as the Glowing Womb charm. I recommend upgrading the Mothwing Cloak ability to the Shade Cloak. The Shade Cloak is found at the bottom right of the Abyss, and it grants us the ability to safely dash through enemies and their attacks. The Shade Cloak is useful in this fight because it can get us out of some sticky situations. Having the Coiled Nail definitely makes this fight easier, so I recommend upgrading your nail at the Nailsmith, who resides at the bottom left of the City of Tears. And I recommend finding more charms and charm notches, and collecting mask shards to gain more hit points. Please see the Soulmaster video for a more in-depth general discussion about playstyles and charm combinations. Even in defeat, the Collector is a strange boss. There's essentially a second stage to the Collector fight, one where the Collector stands hunched over, laughing as they drip onto the floor. They'll stay like this forever if we let them, but we are trapped in here with them, so we must beat them up. This does, however, give us the opportunity to hit the Collector with our Dream Nail and see what's going on in that crazy head of theirs, which is, my love, protected at last! A safe space for you, and you, and you. It must be saved. After we've finally beaten this deranged creature to death, we are free to continue roaming about the Tower of Love. If we continue ascending the tower, we'll find 3 grubs in glass jars, and the Collector's map, which shows us where every remaining captured grub is in Hallownest. It's a handy item if you're trying to get 106% complete in Hollow Knight. From the Collector's thoughts and the filled glass jars throughout the tower, it seems like they were all about preserving the creatures of Hallownest. And from the map, the Collector had a particular affinity for the grubs. But why did the Collector leave the grubs captured all around Hallownest and not keep them all within the Tower of Love? And why the affinity for the grubs at all? I mean, sure, they're cute as hell, but is that all it took to catch the Collector's eye? Also, as evidenced by several glass jars within the tower, the Collector wasn't exactly concerned with keeping specimens alive, but I suppose they don't need to be alive to be preserved. By the way, who else thinks it's funny that the tower is called the Tower of Love? I wonder if it was named that before or after the Collector took up residence. On a darker note, the Collector appears to be a creature made purely of void. This is evidenced not only by its shape, but also by the fact that the Collector's body drips onto the floor during the final stage of the fight, and after we officially defeat the Collector, their body kind of falls apart and bubbles away. Where did the Collector come from? Why are they so strange? Why are they obsessed with capturing every grub and anything else they can get their many hands on? I wonder if the Collector was birthed from the void naturally, or if they were created by the Pale King for some forgotten purpose. That's it for our boss discussion about the Collector. Thank you for joining me today, noobs. Stay tuned for future Hollow Knight boss videos. If you've got any thoughts about the Collector, either about the fight or about them as a character in the world of Hollow Knight, I'd love to hear them in the comments below. I am the Perpetual Noob, and I'll see you all next time.